Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where every week we pick a different sitcom, watch just its first televised episode, rate it just on that episode alone, ignoring anything we may or may not know about future episodes and the show itself. This week we're going to be talking about Mama's Family. Mama's Family went 130 episodes over 6 seasons, originally airing on NBC for the first 2, and then spending the next 4 on first-run syndication. This week we're going to be talking about episode 1, which is Vint and the Kids Move In, which originally aired January 22nd, 1983. So to start things off, my name's Jay Gags. I'm your host. With me as always, the guys, Ferg, Joe, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Skeeter.
I hate you so much.
Joe's anticipation to do that, like he knew
I was watching him. That's why you heard me giggle during your intro. I was watching him waiting to do it, and it was making me laugh.
So just to get things started, as we typically do, has anyone not seen Mama's Family before recording this episode?
I have not. I remember.
No. I mean, I know of it, but I didn't see it.
I didn't know of it by name. I knew Vicki Lawrence's character, but that's it. I have no recollection of this show whatsoever.
I knew of the show, and I want to say I've probably seen it, but I really don't remember, so I can't, in all honesty, say for sure that I've seen this before. Gordo, I just assume you didn't?
Well, considering that I almost watched the wrong episode.
Not almost.
I did watch the wrong episode.
He's a big fan.
I'm a big fan.
He's seen multiple episodes, but we've seen one.
Yeah, apparently I've seen multiple episodes.
He bookended the first season. He watched the first and the last.
Yeah, for those of you who want to catch our spin-off show, S1E1, Gordo's going to be doing a solo show afterwards.
But no, I was familiar with the character. I knew this was a skit on the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was actually Carol Burnett who played Mama, not Vicki Lawrence.
Yeah, no, she played Eunice, so I wanted to get into that.
She was actually
before.
supposed to play her.
Before we got into this whole episode, I do want to give a little backstory because this is a little different than some of the other shows we've done where there is the story. This show has a little bit of a story before it came to air. So yeah, as you said, this was a spin-off from a series of sketches that were on the Carol Burnett show called The Family. Yeah, Carol Burnett played Eunice in those. And then they made a Eunice made-for-TV movie that did pretty well. And then eventually spun off and created Mama's Family, starring Vicki Lawrence's character.
And Ken Berry, who plays Vinton, is in that as a different character, too. There's a lot of confusion between everything.
Yeah, and the thing that I think is also somewhat important to mention, if you didn't know, like, the sketches from before, like, these sketches, quote-unquote, aren't like an SNL sketch where they last for a few minutes. These sketches were, like, 17 plus minutes long. If you go and look any of them up, a lot of these original Carol Burnett show sketches of The Family are on YouTube, and it's a sketch, but they are almost within a few minutes long enough to be a full episode of television on their own right.
And they're good, but they're nowhere near as good as one of the greatest TV shows of all time, Mama's Family.
Sure. They definitely feel, I watched out of curiosity, just clicked on one to get a little bit of a backstory, and you can tell that it doesn't have the production of a normal show, so it can tell it's like on a single stage, and the sets are pretty close, but yeah, you can tell it's a little different, that it was more set up as a sketch versus the full episode. So yeah, let's just get started with the actual show. So in the intro, we just see this elderly looking woman kind of dusting and cleaning, and it cuts to just a bunch of frame pictures of the cast. And it's just a really simple intro, nothing really special, but just to cover that.
It also feels a lot to me like All in the Family because of the way the song is and the way they pan into the house.
The house, like I was going to say this later, but the house is very similar to All in Families.
Yeah. I think that they were definitely indebted a little bit to
Right, yeah.
All in the Family and how they were setting up everything.
You know what was really different, though, is All in the Family was good.
Oh, fighting words.
Okay, well.
You know, I will give the show this credit. The theme song wasn't bad. Like ragtime jazz wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
How do you feel about that, Joe? That Gordo likes the music?
Well, I'm glad he liked something. I feel like I'm going to be an island to myself on this one. I don't like to give any of us give our hands or anything, but Ferg gave his hand.
But
and we'll get
there. You don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't know.
So right off after the intro, it cuts to two women sitting together, two older looking women, and that's
wait. Did the version you see not have the Harvey Korman intro?
No. Did we watch the same episode?
Did you watch the right episode?
Yeah. I hope you watched the wrong one.
Of course, I don't remember seeing. Well, then why don't you explain it? Because I didn't see it. It cut right to Thelma and Fran and
the very first episode in. I don't want to say things we shouldn't say, but the link I watched it at, which was a streaming website, played the original air version, which is Harvey Korman, who you might know as Hedley Lamar from Blazing Saddles. He's also on Carol Burnett. He's playing a character, and he's introducing the show and what it's about, and then they cut to everybody.
Oh, no, that was there. That intro was there, because we talked about it when we were watching.
No, it wasn't.
Remember, that was when I said this show has a really weird laugh track, because he was introducing himself and he just said his name and everyone laughed.
Alistair Quince, because he's playing a character from Carol Burnett.
I watched off the DVDs, so off the DVD version, that's not how it introed.
Interesting. They must have pulled it for syndication, but so
I know,
when this
the
originally
version
aired,
I saw on the 7 Seas, it definitely had it.
Yeah, so Ferg and I saw a different version. So basically, if you're familiar with the Carol Burnett show or Blazing Saddles, Harvey Korman does this like character where he's Alistair Quince, and he's like a very proper-ish sort of guy and making a bunch of funny jokes, sort of funny jokes, whatever. And he intros the whole show, and then it goes into it.
Is that what he was doing? He was making jokes? I'm not even being a jerk. I'm not giving you a hard time. He literally was like, "Hi, I'm this person," and all of a sudden laugh track, and I'm like, I don't get it. And
it's that old time humor,
he introduced the show, and they laughed.
He made some jokes.
I was really confused.
I guess you had to be a fan of Carol Burnett to get it.
But that's when I did. I messaged you guys, and I was like, "This has a really strange laugh track. I don't understand what they're laughing at." Or it was probably a studio audience, not a laugh track, but still, it's like I was very confused by it.
I would imagine that maybe they even filmed that separately during a Carol Burnett show, and that's why everybody sort of got the joke and were like in the mood, like understood to laugh at it. And maybe they just put it in because it's not the same set or same stage, and they don't cut like to a different scene where they're in the same place. So
well, I guess depending on what version you have, you may or may not have seen that. I didn't, so let's skip ahead to the actual beginning of the episode itself, which was. We see two older women, Thelma and Fran, who are sisters, and those are played by Vicki Lawrence, who plays Thelma Mama, the main character of the show. And then I'm probably going to butcher her actual name. Rue McClanahan, who played Fran, who would probably best be known as Blanche from the Golden Girls.
Oh, probably.
Rue, like the French word for street. Rue.
Yeah. So for those familiar more with the Golden Girls, Blanche from the Golden Girls is playing Fran,
that old hoe.
Mama's sister.
That was Blanche. I didn't even realize that.
What? How did you not realize that?
Did you? Even I knew that.
Yeah.
This is like half of Golden Girls.
I was distracted by.
Did you also notice Betty White later?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's half of Golden Girls.
I want to say Rue McClanahan, if it's not the first episode, is maybe the second, is in an episode of All in the Family 2. And I think it's the first episode. I think it's the pilot. As like a sex pot character.
So was Maude.
She really does get around.
And so was Maude, yeah. All the Golden Girls have made their way around.
I'll say for sure we'll eventually do All in the Family. So, keep an ear out. There'll be an episode of that in the future.
I feel like doing Home Improvement last week prepared us for All in the Family.
We didn't
do
Home Improvement.
We did Home Improvement months ago.
I meant to
that was a long time ago.
I meant to say Married with Children, not Home Improvement.
So Thelma is in a rush. I debate calling her Mama this early because no one refers to her that yet. So for the sake of argument,
Mama,
Thelma, she's in a rush to get to this. There's a sale at the store, and Fran's just trying to eat her breakfast, and she's picking up everything and trying to clean and get everything situated so they can run straight out to this sleepwear sale, as we find out it is.
Are they eating eggs?
She was eating eggs. She said she doesn't have to chew them. She could just slide them down her throat.
It was just weird. They were very broken up. And they were taking the fork and taking really small pieces of the eggs. Again,
it was probably confusing. Also for television eating. She's probably not trying to eat 50 eggs as they record this show. So, boy, I can't eat no 50 eggs.
What was that?
Cool Hand Luke. Never saw Cool Hand Luke?
A classic movie.
We don't do movies, but if we ever do a movie spinoff, maybe we'll do a Cool Hand Luke. Paul Newman. You might know him from his salad dressing.
Or The Towering Inferno, a movie that predicted 9/11 20 years before.
There it is. And so the two the two are getting ready to go to the store, and then as this happened, Fran gets a call from George, who I assume is like her boss or something, and she finds out that the column for the paper that she wrote needs to be edited down, so she's going to have to go to that and can't go to the sale with Thelma. And that just spawns an argument because Thelma, apparently this is more important. Going for the sleepwear sale is more important than Fran's actual job, which is something that she actually had to leave for.
It's really funny to think, too, like, it's not even, like, a recent thing. It's been around for a while. The fact that she had to, like, go to the office to edit down a paragraph was super silly.
Right, she doesn't have a way to do it at home.
Yeah.
Gotta get on that typewriter.
I think she said if she didn't do it herself, they would have killed it. Like, the editor would have taken out all the good stuff.
Which is understandable. So, like, you understand her point.
Yeah.
But Thelma doesn't, and she just says everyone lets her down. Her kids, her husband, God rest his soul, and even now her sister.
I just realized that they were talking about a newspaper column. I didn't
really?
get it at all.
What do you think
said,
it was her
like,
blog?
It was like construction, like the
Yes,
column
I
was
did
going to come
actually
down, and
thought
they
it
had to
was
like
gonna
lower
Gotta
it.
go fix the column.
Oh my God, Kermit column?
Yes.
Rue McClanahan, the builder.
You thought Blanche was going to do some construction work real quick?
Yes, that's why it was so
To be fair, I've
confused.
definitely had a dream where that happened, so.
Just an old lady with a hard hat on.
Oh, she's not an old lady. One thing about this show, this is one of those shows like Country Comfort and a few others where I feel like we can sort of digress a little bit. I think a lot of my brain is broken because Naomi, who we meet later, and Rue McClanahan in this, I think were like my first, like, okay, so that's a sexual awakening scenario.
Wait, Rue McClanahan was one of your
In this? I don't know why, yeah.
What?
She's not young in this job.
No.
She was born in 1947, so.
She was born in 47 and this came out.
She would have been like our wait.
83. She was only in her like later 30s.
Yeah, late
for that.
30s. How is that weird?
I'll tell you, having watched this episode, the idea that she in this episode is about as old as I am now does not feel right. She
No,
feels
Naomi
much
is.
older.
Rue McClanahan was born in 34, so she would have been.
39.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
She looks a lot older than 39.
No,
offense.
34.
Vicki Lawrence does not look old.
Rue McClanahan would have been 45. Naomi would have been about our age, and Vicki Lawrence was younger than we are.
Vicki Lawrence, and I want to get more into that later. I really want to touch on that, Nick, when we are introduced to more characters.
Yeah, okay.
So keep note of that, but I definitely want to get
Keep
into that
note of
because I
all
think
these
that's
sexy,
important.
sexy ladies in this show.
No. So
You're all bananas.
anyways, yeah, so they're going back and forth because of all this, and she says no one reads that measly paper. She's really discrediting Fran's work and like not understanding at all to her situation. And it's just a lot of arguing, and you're just kind of learning the characters and that they're sisters. And in the midst of this argument, you also find out that they live together. And I guess that ends up being a very important piece of this whole episode is the fact that they currently live together.
That she's writing a book. So she works at the newspaper, but her dream is that she's writing a book.
Yes, and it's very important to her.
Which one of the great lines in that too is, I just know there's a book in me. It's like, it's going to stay in there too.
Yeah.
There are so many great mama Southern accent lines.
You've been sitting on that book like a hen for 20 years or some shit like that.
Yes, great lines.
Yeah, and they also have like different recollections as to how they ended up living together because they're both kind of under the impression that they both did it to help the other one.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is it was probably, somewhere in the middle in a mutual beneficial situation to them both. But she also gets on her because her son, Mama's son or Thelma's son, Vinton, tends to always come by with a bag of laundry conveniently around mealtime. And no sooner does Fran say that is enter her son, Vinton. And
Hi, Mama.
He's there with a big bag of laundry, his two kids, Buzz and Sonia, and a giant bag of walnuts. And I was like, why did he bring a bag of walnuts?
That's a really weird offering too, because you find out what he's going to ask, and that's what
Yeah.
he brings as like a peace offering.
And this
Better
is
than
like
these nuts.
one thing. Okay, something that really like I don't know why it bothered me so much, but like Sonia's overacting with the headphones on
dancing
was so overdone. Like, we talk about how this was a show that was originally a sketch, and that was way too much sketch acting and not acting for an actual television show.
Yeah, she's acting like she's walking from stage left all the way to stage right in one fluid movement.
Yeah,
where it's
she's,
like, well, she's
she's
got her
oblivious.
headphones on.
She's like
She doesn't
really
listen to
over
anybody.
dancing, and like it's not realistic to be that unaware of your surroundings, even if you're just some hippie kid listening to their, to their music. Like, it's just not.
Hippie
It didn't
kid?
check. What was that?
You said hippie kid?
Yes.
Yeah.
You think she's a hippie?
Well, not hippie, not in like the 60s.
Especially then, though, there was no noise canceling headphones, so she definitely can hear her surroundings.
She did end up later with not to jump ahead, but she ended up with the Rick Springfield poster. So I guess that's more in line with what music she listens to. But
Yeah, more like
She doesn't go anywhere without Rick.
Eat Your Heart at Rick Springfield, one of the greatest Jimmy Hart songs of all time.
I mean, I guess Jimmy Hart's solo songs, I guess it's probably one of his great, and Shawn Michaels' theme music.
Oh, the Mounties song, Common Man by Dusty Rhodes. There's a ton of good ones. And anyways, in this whole exchange while they're all showing up too, Buzz does kind of mention offhandedly that she's going to see a lot more of them and kind of tips their hand as to what's about to happen later in the episode. And Thelma or Mama asks Buzz to help her in the kitchen with the walnuts. Like, he just throws them.
Yeah, and all he did was like basketball tosses them into the pantry that she's standing right next to anyways. And it was like, I understand that the walnuts were just used as a device for him to have to go into the kitchen with her to get the isolation so they can have a conversation. But like, just like the practicality of it all and this idea that like, Buzz, can you help me put these walnuts away that are just in like a Ziploc bag? It's like, you don't need help with that. Like, you don't need to ask your grandson to help you with this bag of walnuts.
Probably my least favorite kind of nut.
Brazil nuts are the worst nuts.
These nuts are the worst nuts.
You used it already once.
Agreed.
You
can't do it twice.
You can't double
but also no one's disagreeing with you that your nuts are the worst kind of nuts. Everyone is on board with this right now.
Damn.
That and hazelnut.
I like it. You don't like hazelnuts?
Just got salted.
Well, after last week's episode, we had all that Christmas store nutcracker talk. I guess this is Gordo coming back around on all of us.
Did Gordo get fired from the Christmas store because every time someone bought a nutcracker, he asked if they would like a bag of D's nuts to go with the nutcracker?
No, he hadn't heard of that yet. It took.
No, that was far before that.
If Gordo could go back in time, that's how he would get fired from that store.
That's like what episode we're talking about. If you go back in time and stop something. Gordo's is go back in time, back to his shitty retail all year round Christmas job and make one D's nuts joke 20 years ago.
Got him.
Success rate done.
I mean, well worth it.
So anyway, we find out too in this exchange between Mama and Buzz that we know that Vinton's, and I guess this got mentioned earlier, we didn't talk about it, Vinton's wife ran off on the family. So he's been alone with the kids. And we find out that she had called her son and just to give him an update that she's now working in Vegas as like a cocktail waitress at a nightclub.
Oh, good. Well, Anne Margaret can sleep tonight.
What kind of name is Vinton?
I was wondering that too.
The only name I could think of is like there's a singer Bobby Vinton who does like Mr. Lonely, but again that's his last name, and I don't know many. It could be a popular name or was
Maybe.
a popular.
And this show is the only time I've ever heard that name ever.
Yeah,
my whole life.
I could only think of Bobby Vinton anytime it came up, but yeah.
That was also a great point too. Where is this right where Mama grabs the beer when she finds out that they're gonna try to stay there, and she's like, "If I'm gonna get through this, I gotta be half lit."
Yeah. No, this is no because Vinton talks about.
It was a little after. It was a little after all that. Yeah. Yeah. So Vinton comes in, he sits down, and you can already see right off the bat that he's a little bit nervous because he needs to tell her something. And that's when he lets her know that he recently invested in chinchillas. And so as a result, he's a little short on his funds right now. And that also meant that he fell behind in his bills and got kicked out of the house.
That's such a Gordo get-rich-quick scheme.
So at the time, like I know, like especially back then, like furs were very popular, and chinchillas it was an expensive fur. So I assume that was the goal. They weren't just breeding chinchillas for like
I didn't even think
pets.
of that. I thought they were pets.
Oh no, chinchilla fur was very coveted in that time. So I can only assume that's what was going on.
Yeah, they were definitely.
It wasn't like mink. It was minx was. I don't
no,
think
mink.
people
Yeah,
wore
mink was also, but
chinchillas,
that was the only
both
reason.
were big.
There's more than one
have
fur.
a chinchilla.
I know there's more than one fur. Club me a couple baby seals. But
there's more than one way to skin a chinchilla.
I've never heard of chinchilla. I've heard of them as pets, and that's it. I've never heard people.
Yeah, no, I'm almost positive at that time it was a fur thing.
I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I never heard of that.
Usually like liner for
doesn't matter.
collars.
Moving on.
Yeah. And so in the midst of all this, Vint and the kids they've been kicked out of their house. And so he asks Mama if they can stay, at her house for a little while. And she's obviously not super pleased. And you can tell she was never very fond of his wife to begin with, and said something along the lines of that she could always tell she wasn't paddling with both oars in the water. Like, she wasn't a big fan of hers and kind of knew she was going to run off one day.
There's also, too, this is a weird aside, but you find out that Vinton is a locksmith?
Yes, because of his
he
jacket.
Says that people have been
quick keys.
People haven't been locking themselves out of their houses lately.
Yeah, people have been locking themselves out of their house. Do you remember when we were kids reading wrestling magazines, how there's always an ad in the back of wrestling magazines that was like, be a locksmith, like $25 an hour.
And Figures Inc.
Those. So
Figures Inc. magazine.
Yeah. Like, you'd always see that, and it always made me think that being a locksmith was like this very high earning position, which like you can make a lot of money being a locksmith.
I think it is actually pretty.
It's still a pretty well paying. Yeah,
it's
very
specialized. I don't know what he's fucking something up.
It's a good job because if it doesn't go well, you can use it for a life of crime.
There you go.
Sure. Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to be the sharpest tool in the shed either.
So I want to get back a little bit too to something Nick alluded to earlier. So at this point, Vinton is...
He's 16 years older than her.
Yeah, that's supposed to be Mama's son. And he is so... It's not just the fact that he's older, because she's got the wig on to look a little older, but he's not a young looking man to begin with.
He's not.
He's got a very old... Like, he looks too old to be the father of those children.
Ken Berry. And he's been in a bunch of stuff too. Like, he's an F Troop, and he's in a bunch of shows in the 60s.
And I think this is just like a problem that you're going to see throughout this episode in general. It's I understand the premise of the original sketches and how it was done and how it was made for sketch comedy.
Do a better job at casting.
But now when you're out of... Yeah, but they used a lot of the cast members from the original sketches. Like, most of the people were just carryovers from the Carol Burnett show.
Well, to not go ahead on characters, I pulled all the ages of everybody who... It's confusing, right? So Valerie is 30. So Mama, she's 34 in real life, right?
Okay.
Betty White is playing her daughter.
Her daughter. Yes.
Betty White was born
Wait, Betty White is her daughter?
Yes. Betty White is her daughter. She was born in 1922. So in this episode, Betty White is her daughter, and she's 61. Rue McClanahan is playing her sister, and she was born in 1947. Ken Berry, Vinton, is born in 1933, and he goes to high school and graduates with Naomi, who was born in 1947. The ages are fucking bonkers.
It doesn't help, too, that, like, Mama's... like wig is so bad, and it's clearly a younger person doing an old person impression.
She's younger than us now.
Yeah, she looks like she's in her 30s aside from the wig.
Yeah, but that was the point of the sketch.
Yeah, but that's one thing in so if you're watching an SNL sketch, right, and you're playing the father and like your two kids are your same age, like you let that slide for a 2-minute sketch where you're absorbing the premise. In a show like this now, where they're having normal dialogue, and this grown man is sitting there talking to a woman who's like 16 years younger than him and is acting like that's his mother, it's not believable enough. Like,
totally,
And for me personally, and like we'll get into Betty White and how she's in it later as her daughter, but that stuff's so extreme that it completely distracted me every scene. It was just too weird, and I couldn't get past it.
Also, I didn't realize that she was supposed to be her daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the craziest thing is the ages. The age disparity is just wild through all the characters. And that's
just one of those things that like it worked for the sake of the sketches, but in translation afterwards, it just didn't. You had to recast some of those roles. You probably could have got away with her being Mama still, but you would have needed her to have like children that were closer to her age at least, so that the wig would make her look a little bit older, and and then have their kids and stuff like that, and it could have worked out.
It should have been that Rebecca McClanahan and Betty White were sisters, not Vinton's sister and her child. It's crazy, but it's funny, and like I guess they're going for like the insanity. It never bothered me as a kid, but it was weird being able to look up, because when I used to watch this show, I watched all the time as a kid. We had no access to like looking this information up. Looking it up now and actually having the dates in your mind, it's pretty crazy to think that that's what they were doing. And like obviously it was for fun, but it's weird seeing now with adult eyes and being like, this doesn't make a lick of sense. From
this point, so Mama does reluctantly allow them to move in, because I guess at this point, like it's her son and her grandkids. So what's she gonna do? She can't say no. And Vint yells, towards the living room to the kids that they're moving in, and they both rush in the door. They were both like basically standing at the door. And they're trying to figure out who's going to sleep where. And like the only way for Sonia to have her own room is for Mama's sister Fran to lose her studio. And as we talked about earlier, her writing is very important to her. This whole quest to write her own book is a really big thing for her. So to take her studio away, when they're already kind of having like a little bit of tension that morning, just so, all of Mama's family can move back in the house, it's not going to go over too well.
And we kind of glossed over a little bit too, but they show how dire the situation is too, because Vinton comes in and he's like, oh, they're auctioning the house off tomorrow. And they said, as long as we come later, we can get all our furniture out today. So it's bad. Like it's gotten to a point where
so her back's against the wall, and like to take the comedy out of the show, like obviously like if anyone went to like their mother in a time of need like that, like I can't imagine any of us being turned away in that kind of an emergency. So like you understand.
I think most mothers would be excited about that. Like they don't want their babies out. Like, and
my mom would tell me to go fuck myself.
Well, there's a point where it's not just like helping your son and grand. It's one thing to help, but it's another when everyone moves in, and it's a lot. It's strenuous. You know what I mean? It's like you're
swap a family from a sitcom that we've already done. Raymond's Family. How excited would the mother have been if Raymond showed up with the kids? Like, Mom,
I think Raymond would jump in the river head first before he had to move back in with his mom.
Yeah, but on a realistic note, it's like, that you now have to make dinner for, an extra 3 people every night. Like, how are they going to be contributing towards paying for all that food? Like, what are the logistics? It's more cramped up, right? There's less access to the bathroom, like all these little things.
Yeah, it seems like there's only one bathroom in there. We've all lived in situations where, like, a lot of people in one bathroom, and it's a nightmare. You never want to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I was also going to say, too, this kind of revealed a little bit that it almost seems like Mama is showing Vinton is her favorite child. I don't know why I picked up on that vibe, but just her interaction with him is the vibe that I got from Vicki Lawrence.
He's just the least self-sufficient. Like, so I think she feels the most need to protect him because he needs the most protecting.
Yeah, I get like he's the baby and he's kind of a dimwit.
Yeah, he's like the 60-year-old baby of the family.
But also, he seems to be the only one who has grandkids for her, too. So there has to be like the soft spot where she's like, she wants to have grandkids, and he's the one who did that for her. So.
Yep.
And that's what I mean by I'm surprised she wasn't excited to have the grandkids in the house. Like,
well, she seemed to act much differently towards the grandchildren than Vinton and her sister and her other daughter will eventually see.
Yeah.
Like she definitely has that, like I said, that favoritism kind of towards them. But, you guys just pointed out reasons why that, lost my train of thought there. But you guys pointed out why that, great. Damn it. Tough nut to crack here, boys. I'll let you just continue, Jay. Just don't mind me. Don't mind me. That was a Bobo.
Classic Gordo Bobo.
Classic Gordo Bobo.
Yeah. So and that's basically the end of that scene. That is when Mama reaches for the beer because he needs to get lit for all this. And the next scene is Mom in the living room with her daughter Ellen, who's played by Betty White, and as we've already talked, a gigantic age disparity there. Like it's very, very noticeable.
And a huge age disparity between her and Vinton.
Right. To the point where, like, for Betty White,
I guess they're only 11 years, though, so that makes sense, I guess. You could
Betty
be
White and
Vinton?
Sibling.
What's that?
For Betty White and Vinton's character?
Yeah, Ken Berry and Betty White are
his brother and sister.
Apart.
I suppose on like
my oldest sister's 10 years older than me.
Right, yeah, it's not a
that's not too crazy. As far as the only thing that really makes it odd is Vicki Lawrence is so much younger than the rest of them. I guess that it's so noticeable when your children on the show are older than you in real life.
Yeah, no, I'll accept one, but the two of them, it's a little much.
And so basically what happens is I believe she had to call her daughter over to get her stuff out of the house because now they need to clear out the basement or whatever so Vincent can move in with the kids. And she finds like her old notebook from school, like a composition notebook, and she's just flipping through it, and she's kind of like tickled reading her old, like what she wants to be when she grows up, which was a movie star, an author, and the richest woman on earth. And I think Mama tells her like, oh, well, none out of 3 ain't bad.
None out of 3 ain't bad. She's good with a quip.
Yeah. And Vint comes down with like this big box of things and he trips and falls. And it was a little too slapsticky for me to fall.
I didn't like the way he fell.
Yeah,
at all.
I love this show, but he's taking some real bad bumps for the next 5 or 6 minutes in the show. He's just taking
it was made for the laugh, but it was a little too silly. It didn't play real enough for the situation.
Also, did you notice that when he gets hit by the door, they don't even show him get hit by the door? Like the door just closes and then he's on the ground. It was like a weird cut. And the only thing I can think of is like he made it look so bad they had to cut the actual hit.
Like, this
he
won't
couldn't
work.
Yeah, he couldn't do it. It was awful.
Yeah, and during all this chaos too, we hear Naomi, the neighbor. She enters in through the kitchen and she's like complaining about the tree that's Mama's tree is like it drips sap all over her car because it leaks onto the property line, and Mama tells her to not park under the tree, and I don't agree with necessarily running in your neighbor's house to yell and complain about stuff, but I guess when you look at the logistics of this argument here, it's tougher to side with Mama because it is your tree and it's interfering with something of your neighbor's.
I'd have to see the parking spot.
Well, it sounded like she was parked in her driveway. That's kind of the vibe I got.
That's what I wasn't
sure. The tree
sure
leaks over
about.
to the other property.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. The tree's big enough that it comes over her driveway, so that's her shady spot to park. We don't know where the show takes place specifically.
I was just going to say that. Where does this
right?
show take place?
I don't know if there's any hints
somewhere.
towards it. If there is, it's not in this episode. There's nothing, to me at least, that picked up on. Unless
You can't figure out by the bad accent where they're from?
I'm sorry, bad accent?
Huh? Yeah, bad accent.
God, I can't.
Alabama.
You think they're Alabama?
Yeah.
Greenbow,
Alabama.
Thank you.
I got you.
But so they're debating a little bit about this issue between the car sap on the tree, which is this thing like leaking car sap? Like is it like that much sap? Like she can't park under there for a few hours without her car being just completely like covered in sap.
Yeah,
But-
like bird crap, I'd understand.
Yeah,
but-
pollen, things like that. Like all this stuff's
Definitely
like
pollen
understandable.
because my black car is yellow right now from friggin'
that
pollen.
stuff's I don't know if I park my street. There's like trees right under where I park, and like I don't have sap all over my car all the time.
Isn't
That's
sap
not
usually like a maple tree too, which doesn't seem like the kind of thing that usually grows in the South. It's usually like
Jay,
a
what
northern thing.
what WrestleMania was it where we had to go to that really shady neighborhood to park?
Orlando when we're in
'Cause
Orlando.
we were under some like low hanging trees that were leaking some kind of sap. Like
By the way,
lot.
it's a fictional place based off of suburb of Kansas City.
Okay, so the
Okay.
Midwest actually.
Like every other show we covered, we talked about
Yeah.
it last week. Every show seems to be in the Midwest for some reason.
the
Home of
Midwest
barbecue
podcast.
and Harley race.
And you know what I thought was weird too is like when they're arguing, like Naomi just goes in the fridge and grabs a beer, and I'm like, first off, if my neighbor ran in my house to yell at me, I'd probably attack them, like get out of my home. And then if you opened my fridge and took food or drink out of it, like what kind of like
Get out of my house. She just savagely.
Well, you
puts
figure out
the
though, they
fridge
talk
away.
about she went to high school with Vinton, so they probably lived next door to each other for 30 years or 50 years.
Yeah, I think
depending on
that
how old Canterbury is.
refrigerator thing was intentional to, kind of set the mood on their relationship, right? Like, I think it was like that. They're arguing, yes, but they've
No,
also...
because at that point she didn't know that he was moving in.
Right, but she's lived there her whole life though, so she knew Vinton,
Right.
and that's why she's in
I've
the
had
house.
the same neighbors. I've lived here, off and on, but like lived here, this house for over 30 years, like 32 years now. We've had the same neighbors the whole time. I'm not close enough with them to knock on their door without feeling uncomfortable, let alone walking straight into their house and demanding something. Like
Different
I could
time,
never-
though.
I don't think I could ever just open their door and go like, "Hey, you got to move your car." Like I can't fit like in front of the house. Like
I just remember you used to get irate when they had all their cars in the
Yeah.
street.
I mean, I have a neighbor, well, when I lived at home, I have a neighbor I would do that to, though,
you'd run in their house and yell at them.
Well, no, I mean, like, if they had, like, their car was in the way, I would go into Will's house and say, hey, sometimes I'll just take the keys and move it myself or whatever.
I guess it depends on the dynamic and the closeness. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't get the vibe that they're super close for that kind of relationship, but I guess it is
that's what I'm
it is.
saying, though. I think the point was, do you think that was to insinuate that they were close? The fact that she does go into the refrigerator.
I didn't get that vibe. I got the vibe that
she was close with Vinton in high school and still pines for him and was over at the house all the time back then, and that she never let that go even when he moved away. And Mama hates it.
I
that
didn't really
she's still
get that.
there.
So, and we'll get into that because so to go into it, yeah. From this argument, they do leak into the living room where Vinton and everyone is currently like moving in, and that's when she discovers, she being Naomi, that Vinton is now moving in with his mother, so he's gonna be right across the way, and they obviously have a thing for each other right off the bat. There's this he always had a crush on her apparently, and she's very much into him now at least.
Yeah, she
And
was a
even when he
cheerleader.
admitted that he had a crush on her back in the day, she said something like, "Why didn't you let me know? I could have squeezed you in somewhere." And I'm like, "What?"
It's a great line.
She was a thirsty old whore.
Jesus, Ferg. Jesus, come on.
I didn't get the vibe that Mama was fully aware that they knew each other. I just think that as neighbors, they didn't get along that well. I don't know if that relationship was part of it.
You know what I think it is? I think that this is just an everyday occurrence. So it's not strange to her. It's when she hears the scream, she knows what it is, and she's not surprised by it at all. Like, hey, why are you in my house?
Yeah.
So I think I don't think she usually like busts and screaming, but I think she doesn't have any, what's it called?
Limitations?
Yeah.
When they were when Vinton and Naomi were talking and they went over how she was like the head cheerleader at the time and they start doing the cheer together. I was a little surprised she did like her old cheer and she did like the little move where she like lifts.
She showed her
back.
booty.
Yeah, she lifts the back of her skirt and I was like, I really wasn't expecting that for the episode. It wasn't like that it was X-rated or anything, but it was like just a little bit more than I would have thought to see in a show like that.
That was probably one of the weird moments that 8-year-old me was like, oh, hello, Naomi. How are we doing today?
I can't believe now, all right, to peel it back, we all kind of take turns picking shows, and Joe was the one who selected that we did Mama's Family, and I thought it was a strange pick, but obviously for those of you guys who listened by now, you know Joe's a strange enough guy that it checks. But now, to know that he selected the show because this is basically the show he went through puberty to and like discovered himself.
Yeah.
Makes
really
the
weird.
whole, even the fact that I watched the show now feels that much more dirty. Like,
Even if I like this show, I would cancel it now.
yeah, now I feel uncomfortable having watched it, but
But does it surprise any of you?
no.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Really? Okay, Nick, I got one. To her dying day, if Rue McClanahan showed up and was like, we're going.
Didn't she have her dying day?
As I said, to her dying day.
Oh, I was going to say, I said until her. I was like, I think we've crossed it.
I got some bad news, Joe.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
It's just like thinking about
Joe's like, I would still do it.
Oh.
Katie Vick action.
Oh.
All right, moving on.
Yeah. So that's it. So they basically just established that they're probably going to hang out at some point next week. And I would assume at this point are establishing that this is going to be a thing, right? Vint is moving in with Mama. Already him and the neighbor who Mama doesn't get along with have a liking to one another. So, without having seen more, I can only assume that this is going to be a budding relationship, which is going to be a thorn in her side. I could be wrong, but this is very strongly what they're hinting to at this point.
Yeah, I think even if you haven't seen other episodes, you understand that this is act 2 of this show, right?
She also does a very strange goodbye as she's leaving, where she kind of like puts her hands like behind her back, like over her butt, and just like almost does like a come here motion with her hand to say goodbye. It was an interesting
weird.
exit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird for a show this old to do that.
Yeah.
And she was very old too, Naomi. I know we touched on it, but
She's
like
37.
She was old.
She's 2 years older than you
She
are at
looked
this moment.
old. No, but you know what? I'm of a better stock. Like they just like
This
like
is a
they
hard disagree here. I've known you my entire life.
No, they like I don't know what it is about the older generation, but like they just look old from like when they were like 18.
So let me just get this straight. You think 35-year-old you looks better than 37-year-old Naomi then?
100%. I don't look like a wrinkled Florida retiree.
Oh my
Like
god.
with
this is
bad-
insane.
Hey.
What?
Leave the
Ferg doesn't tolerate
Floridorians
bad
alone.
talk about
Yeah,
Florida.
we've put a moratorium on the Florida bad
No,
stuff.
I don't. Listen, I don't. I love our Floridian listeners, and I love the state of Florida. I get to swim with Flap Flap, Disney World. I live there.
Flop flaps?
What
Flap
the flap
flap.
flap?
What a flap flaps.
Flap Flaps.
What the fuck
I don't
is
know
a
what that
flap
means.
A
flap?
stingray.
You get on Joe for making stuff up, and then
Yeah,
you
wait,
just said you like to get in
Bobo's
the
a
water with
problem,
flop
Mr. Flap
flaps.
Flap?
I like that you said it again like I go, oh, flap flaps.
It's like, oh, I know what you mean, obviously.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
they
never
flap.
mind.
They flap. Yeah, Flap Flaps. But yeah, I mean,
no,
what
they
are you
killed
talking
Steve
about?
Irwin. Please
they're
go on.
saying they saying that I don't like Florida. I like Florida. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that she looks very beach worn.
Yeah, and
And
to those
very
of you who
withered.
who don't know, we talked about in a prior episode. Gordo did used to live in Florida for a time period as well, so he does
So you
have.
can't
his
say
roots
that
there.
I hate it.
No one was saying that you hate Florida. That's literally nowhere
He's
near the
very
conversation we were
insulted
just
by that.
having.
And she's just tan.
She's a bad tan.
No,
I
she's
think
leather
too,
tan.
wrinkled.
She's
Leather-
like
leather
when you
tan.
pair her up with Vinton and make it look like they went to high school together, then you start associating her with being older because he looks so old as well. So that doesn't help either. she didn't look absurdly young. I mean, I will give you that. I think she did look a little older than she actually was at the time of the episode.
I think people
Thank you.
age differently now, even they did 30 years ago. That's just for sure. People seem younger.
Maybe if she was drinking some of, as we talked about last week, Gordo's Crow Nuts coffee.
Perk her right up.
Yeah.
Maybe some Fanta.
Fountain of Youth.
She loves those crow nuts.
The Fanta of youth. Gordo's favorite place.
But yeah, so at this point, Fran comes into the house, into all this chaos, right? So everyone's moving their stuff around. There's a lot going on. And she's a little surprised. She has no idea what's going on at this point. And Sonia's doing that headphone thing again, where she's like oblivious to what's going on, and she's just like dancing to the music. And like, again,
she hasn't had a line yet.
She had one line earlier about getting her own room, which was delivered.
Yeah, she
poorly.
complains.
But it was a poorly delivered line too, and I did take note of it earlier because it was like you had one line and you did it bad.
Like, the kids weren't from the show before, right?
No, they were added. There was reading up on the show. There was an element when the show got picked up by the network that they thought there needed to be some sort of a conventional like actual kids in the family that needed to make sense. So they added those the Buzz and Sonia characters.
It would have been funny. It would have been funnier if they picked 2 more 40-year-old people and dressed them as kids. Hey, fellow kids.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi.
So they just got Steve Buscemi from 40 years later to come back and do it. And as Sonia, Steve Buscemi.
I you know what? I would like the show way more if it was Steve Buscemi.
And as Fran's trying to figure out what's going on, this is also when Ellen, Betty White. So it is interesting to see, right? Because this is before the Golden Girls, but now we have those two characters side by side for this show. So you have Blanche and Rose, interacting on this show. This would have been the first. There could have been other things, but was this the
Maude
first?
and All in the Family, they were in together as well.
Okay, all right, and those were both before this.
Yeah, Maude and All in the Family were 70s.
Was it just the same group of people in every show? Like it was like
Yeah, because Maude was Archie's sister, right?
Edith's
Sister,
cousin.
And Ellen tells Fran that there's good news and bad news, and the bad news is there's no good news.
There's no good news. It's a
and
great
she
line.
takes off. So Fran finds out what's going on, and the result is she's going to have to lose her studio. So she's, understandably so, very upset by the situation, and says, well, then I'm going to move out. And anytime like there's like this, whenever Fran is explaining to Mama like what her plans are, every time Mama just goes, fine. I'm
so glad that everyone's done accents and done Mama voices this entire episode, and the one time you pulled it out was just to repeatedly go, fine. It's so good.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I think as Fran is upset and saying she's moving, she's realizing the logistics of moving and like where's she going to go, because as we said earlier, they both have different visions as to why they ended up together, but I think they did need each other, like for, financial and just comfortability. Like it makes sense to live together. So she's like, oh, well, tomorrow's Sunday. I can't move on Sunday. And then, oh, well, Monday I have a big thing to do at work, so I'm not going to be able to move in the middle of all that.
Yeah, you can't find an apartment overnight.
And every time she's explaining that, each time, fine. And, so it's like, well, they'll figure it out. And again, I don't know how this show pans out past episode 1, but the idea I'm getting is that they're probably going to ride this out for a while. They're probably going to live together for the duration. It was what I picked up on. Whether or not that's true, I don't know.
Yeah, I took that the whole fine thing. This is just something she does a lot when she doesn't get her way. She threatens to move out, and she's heard it 100 times.
Right, they've been siblings for their whole lives, and they're just used to this argument now.
Like, sure, you're not going to do it.
Yeah,
Just
that's what
calling
I
her
got
bluff.
to.
So they start setting the dinner table together to get ready, and they call everyone up. And I think, there was a point. I'm sorry. There was a point earlier during this argument where Sonia did come down before all this and found in her new room, the book that Fran had wrote. And I think that was kind of like, there was a moment where Mama was taken back by realizing that Fran actually has been working on the book. And she got a few chapters done. Yeah. So like, despite everything she had said to her before, like was a little shocked and pleasantly surprised to know that she actually has been doing it, and felt a little bit worse about taking the office away, knowing she took it away while she actively was trying to write her book in it. But yeah, so at dinner now, when they all come upstairs for dinner, Sonia asks her Aunt Fran if she can continue reading the book, because what little we heard of the book, it was pretty.
It's like a smutty romance.
Yeah, it was
novel.
like an
it's
erotic
a romance
novel.
Yeah. So she was, a little taken back by it, and Mama's having nothing to do with that. She says that, she can't read any of that smut, or I think that's how she referred to it, as smut.
I'm kind of sad we don't live in a world where in 1983 Rue McClanahan could do an audiobook of her reading smutty novels.
Yeah, I mean, if only we had that opportunity. I think we all feel exactly the same way you do, and just wish we had that chance for Blanche to read erotic novels, so we have her voice saying dirty stuff. That's something we all wish for.
Do we know any voiceover artists? Do we know anybody who can do the voice for me?
Don't worry, Joe. You can still get your naked pictures of B. Arthur instead.
Outstanding.
My guys.
Man,
So,
Airheads rules so hard.
So as they're going back and forth about whether or not the book is smut, that's kind of the close of the episode. Is just the two sisters arguing, and they go to the exterior of the house, and you can still hear the audio of the dinner conversation with the house being shown, and that's it. It cuts to credits right from there. And
Also very
nothing
All in the
special.
Family right there, too.
Yeah, nothing special in the credits, just standard scroll, and that was it. That was the whole episode. So
now the version you had, I know you didn't have the intro. Did you guys? I know Ferg and I watched the same version. Did you have the one with the mama? She had the little button on the end.
I didn't. So why don't you explain
This
that?
episode was recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah,
And who gives a diddly squat?
I don't think I had that unless I checked out when the credits started to roll.
I closed that window pretty quick afterwards, so.
So anything else you guys want to talk about in regards to the show, since we've covered the whole episode?
Nick, question for you.
Shoot.
How much do you think chinchillas costed back in 1989 when this was made?
It was not 1989. It was 1983.
Oh,
Never mind.
That was 1983.
Yeah,
I thought this
83.
was the 60s.
Me too.
Like, I remember Carol Burnett being like my mother watched that.
Yeah, the Carl
I
Burnett
just-
show was in the 70s and went into the early 80s, and this show was a spinoff of that from 83. It lasted a couple of years, and then it went to, I think, 87 or 88 or 89.
It took a while for the show to get off the air too, because from when the Carol Burnett show ran into, there was the Carol Burnett had a show after the Carol Burnett show.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Laugh-In or
I
Gong
can't remember what it was
Show or-
called.
Laughing
when I was
and Gong
looking it
Show
up.
way before.
Yeah, and then they made the Eunice movie, and then after the Eunice movie was a show, like I said earlier. So it took a while for this actually to become a television show after the initial sketches, which shows you how young Vicki Lawrence would have been when she started playing Mama. You know what I mean?
Right,
In
even way
comparison to
younger than
everyone.
this.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, just to go back to, I know we always try to find wrestling to tie into our youth a little bit. This was on a lot on TBS when we were kids in syndication. So if
So
you
is
were
this
watching,
and
like,
WCW back to back?
yeah, WCW and this on like a Saturday, rainy Saturday.
You
was
know
like-
what? Raw got silk stockings after it, all right?
Who would have thought we would mention Silk Stockings 2 episodes in a row?
Episodes in a row.
I remember watching Saturday morning WWF, the Superstars with Lord Alfred Hayes, and that would cut into that monster truck show where they had
Oh,
the
the one with
characters.
the characters?
The
That
characters
was so
played
good.
the monster trucks, like they were like live people portraying what the truck was supposed to be.
Do you remember on Sundays with Superstars, after they had WMAC Masters, which was like the weird wrestling kung fu show?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were all characters
Yeah.
and, like,
Yeah, they would do
and
promos and stuff.
storyboards. Yeah.
They
Sorry to
basically
the,
were a real
to
life
the-
version of those karate fighters that WWF used to hawk all the time. That I
Yeah.
definitely found a couple of when I was packing.
But all their fights were on the Universal Studios backlot and like the rides and stuff.
There are some very confused Tracy Ullman fans who like found our episode and they're like, what on earth are they talking about right now?
Tracy Ullman or Carol Burnett?
Oh, yeah, Carol Burnett. My bad.
Okay. Tracy Ullman also we mentioned last week too because of The Simpsons and Fox.
Spawn The Simpsons, yes.
Yeah, and her great song "Breakaway."
They're the
So
worst.
yeah, so like upon watching the whole thing, we've talked about it a little bit as we're going along, but yeah, I mean, some things for me were the age thing was really hard to get past. And I did feel that the premise of the show could have been fine. Like the jokes were fine for what they were, but I think their loyalty to the original sketches handcuffed them because they felt they had to have certain people portray those roles again. Where I think if you just took, Vicki Lawrence's character as Mama and created a show around her with new people, it probably could have worked where it felt a little bit more fresh and where the characters age-wise didn't look so awkward. because it's just that everybody is like, she's one of the youngest people on the whole show, and she's supposed to be the oldest.
I was gonna say, isn't that kind of the appeal to it? Like back,
Yeah,
in
it's the
that
fun of it.
Simple, simplistic humor. Like, I mean, it wasn't. I'm not gonna say it's not nuanced because there was a couple of jokes in there that were, but like, I think the whole running theme is supposed to be Vicki Lawrence is the youngest.
Yeah, but I guess like
these.
when you look at like, it's a weird comparison, but if you think of like Medea, right? Medea, he dresses as the older woman and he plays like the older woman, but
Hallelujah.
hallelujah.
I was waiting to see how long it would take for her to go, hallelujah.
there isn't, it's not like, the person playing Medea's daughter happens to be 20 years older than Medea. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work that way. And I think that's the difference, where it's like, it's actually more believable for Tyler Perry to play an older woman than Vicki Lawrence because of just the characters surrounding that main character.
Well, do we have both Medea and Grandmama because of Mama's Family?
No.
I think you
so flat for
No.
I feel like you might have Medea because of Grandmama.
But you don't think Grandma owes a little bit of a debt to Mama?
And what was when Ernest had the older woman he played?
God. Ernest played his mother.
Yes.
This place needs drapes.
So yeah, that same kind of
Everyone's
style
son a criminal, not a very good one.
And that's I can't think if there's any other examples quite like that, but I think those are a few notable ones. And those are all men playing older women. I don't know if there's a lot of other sketches where there's a woman playing a vastly older woman than she actually is in real life. So that's the only one that really comes to mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's definitely much more prevalent the other way around.
Yeah, because it's a little bit more of a comedic thing when you have something that off, So yeah, I mean, anything else that you guys want to say in relation to Mama's Family? Any last thoughts before we get into the green light or cancel? Anybody?
We were talking the other day about, do you own DVDs? Do you own DVD box sets? This is one of those shows I hadn't seen because I don't think it's playing anywhere as far as on TV and syndication anymore, at least any channels I have. And
I couldn't
looked up
find
how
it
much
on
the
any
complete
streaming
series was, and it is in my Amazon want list, and it'll be purchased very shortly.
And what does that go for? Roughly, do you remember?
I think like $30-ish
For the whole series?
for everything. Yeah.
I mean, for the amount of episodes it had for
Yeah,
like a
I mean,
long
for-
6-season run, that's very fair.
Yeah, for a good. I mean, that'll be what I watch in bed probably like from now until around Halloween or Christmas whenever I finish it.
And I brought it up at the beginning, and I did want to talk about it real quickly. If you guys had more insight than maybe I did, I read up on it a little bit. So this show went 6 seasons. The first 2 on NBC. It got canceled on NBC after 2. Had a little bit of a break, and then got re-picked up, but as first run syndication stuff. So to my understanding, isn't that basically like the people who make the show own the show, and they're basically just selling it into time slots? Like, so no studio really owns it. It's just whoever wants to play it has the opportunity to pay for to use it, or however that works.
Exactly, yeah. It's something that happened with cable, like with the proliferation of cable across the country. You could make TV shows and say, well, if, I can sell this to different markets and they'll play it, I can make my money enough to actually make the show, and we make money off of it. And I'm sure they probably had some sort of backdoor deal with commercial sales and stuff, but yeah, it's just an interesting way to do it. It's not a network funded thing. It was just, we're going to make this, we're going to front the money, and then we're going to sell it on the back end. And it worked because we all saw it as kids, right? So it was playing at least around
Yeah,
here.
it was playing. And I feel like in today's world, that would be like the equivalent. And not that first run syndication doesn't still exist, but I feel like the more common move now would be like, this show got dropped after a couple seasons, but they got picked up to go on Netflix or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a digital provider.
Yeah, it feels more like where now, or like Amazon, now you sell your content to a streaming site where you can have the whole season run somewhere else. And I guess there'd be a similar situation to that.
Plus, everything went digital, and also it's on demand too.
I mean, access for a new show is so much easier, right? Yeah, between all the streaming, you're on demand, everything.
Yeah, so I guess that's it. Unless anyone else had anything else to say, I think we can get straight into the green light or cancel. So let me go in the order. I see you guys. Ferg, you're going to be first.
Well, this show, I recognized that it was not made for me. It's a different age, but it was just so bad. I hated it. And I hated a lot of the shows that I canceled, but I loved to hate them. And I finished them. I will not be finishing this. Canceled, done.
Joe, on to you.
I have a feeling I might be the cheese standing alone on this one. I think I've gone through my reasons for why I like this show, as weird as some of them may be.
Perverted?
Really? What was that?
As perverted as they may be?
As perverted as they might be as well.
Did you make that cheese into Swiss cheese?
I'm a Rue McClanahan fan, and I will be giving this a green light.
All right, Nick.
I there were parts of this show that were, entertaining, I guess you could call it. I could not pay attention to this show. Like there was no part of the show that like engaged me in any way. It was just unfunny conversations, and I didn't like it at all. I had no fun watching it. I had to like rewind a few times because I just drifted off into nothing while watching it. I just could have cared less about this show. Cancel it. Surprised it lasted as long as it did. It's poorly cast, poorly acted. I hate everything about it. Red light.
Gordo, on to you.
No, cancel this. This works. Let me not downplay the character of Mama and Vicki Lawrence and Carol Burnett. Like, this is an iconic character in that era of television. However, it should have stayed a skit on the Carol Burnett show. People found it popular and people found it funny. Like, there were points in time where I chuckled, but ultimately it just didn't do it for me. It just didn't do it for me. So cancel it.
Yeah, and all right, so it's on to me, and as of right now, we have 3 cancels, 1 green light. And Joe, I'm sorry, I can't team up with you on this one. You have to sit on your own. I'm gonna have to also cancel this, and for a lot of the reasons they said, I think Gordo really touched on it the way I wanted to. Is I feel like the character of Mama was funny, and I did like her character, and I don't think that this was the best use of that character. I think in smaller sketches, not even necessarily in the way that the Carol Burnett show would use them. Like if it was more shorter style sketches and you used her in funny incidents, like I think that works. But cast this way with all these older people playing her children, it took me out of the episode way too much. I didn't think that the granddaughter was a phenomenal actor. I thought Vinton was a little too slapsticky with his falls and stuff like that. It just didn't hit with me. A few funny one-liners, so I didn't hate the show, but I can't say that I have any more desire to continue watching it. And yeah, again, like Gordo said, no discredit to Vicki Lawrence's portrayal of Mama. I think that she, that it's a good character, and the character is still known today because of how well she did it. But it just, something wasn't clicking, and I just can't green light this. So we're gonna have to go 4 against 1 here, guys. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Mama's family, but we are giving you the cancel. You will not be living on to see another day with us. So with that being said, that's it for us this week, guys. Again, if you want to follow us on anything, you can go to S1E1pod.com. That's the link to all of our social medias. It's our Spotify, our Apple, everywhere you can listen to us. Go ahead, give us a subscribe, like, review, do all that stuff. We talk about it every episode, but we can't stress it enough. It means an awful lot to us when you guys do that. It does a lot to help us out in our numbers and kicks up those algorithms, so it's very beneficial on our end. And if you think you have friends and stuff that would enjoy the show, please spread the word. Again, that does a lot for us as well. And we appreciate every time someone reaches out, messages one of us, or the show in general, and lets us know how you feel about the show. If you enjoy it, if there's something you want different, let us know. And we take all that to heart, and we really appreciate all the feedback. So thank you guys so much. That's it for us this week. We'll catch you next week. Goodbye.
Bye, Skeeter.
Hallelujah.
Grandmama.